Was trying to see why it was blue, everybody. So yeah, my name is Lily Coley, Dr. Lillian Coley. I am a part of I don't know, I want to call it a mess, but 3 cases or 2 cases out of the 3 involving high profile people and attorneys who have went against the law. So what we wanted to do tonight was to talk about the importance of voting and why we should vote. So I'm on here to do just that, to say, look, there's a lot of reasons why we shouldn't vote or people don't feel like they should. But if you don't vote, you're not heard. You don't have an opinion. There's so many people who die for us to vote that I can't even get my arms around it. And when me and my godson, Ramir Sadaway, experienced these cases over the last 12 years and saw the corruption in the court, corruption with the clients, corruption with the attorneys, all 3, we realized that this was more than about us. So we were very conscious, if you will, very aware, very strategic in making sure that the bigger narrative would be met. My goddaughter, Wanda Satterway, was also part of the case. She passed away in 2019. But nonetheless, we wanted to talk about, me and my godson wanted to talk about the importance of voting and getting good judges in there and seeing. Now, I'm going to be honest. When I saw what happened with the Supreme Court, whether I believe in this case or not case, and I'm going to always go for what's right. I'm not going to go with crazy. I'm not going to go with stupid. And I'm not going to go with liars. And I'm not going to let anybody tell me to do that. But putting that all aside, when the Supreme Court made a decision in a recent thing, an immunity decision, I knew from looking at that case that had elements of fraud, elements of somebody being paid out. Why? Because myself, my godson, we went through the same thing where we saw judges being paid out, literally. In fact, one of the judges asked me for money. Yes, he did, y'all. It's on record. So at the end of the day, there are circumstances and situations why there is so important for you as a person, as an American, to get out and vote. So I had a couple questions that came through about the cases that me and my godson's going through. The biggest thing we want to talk about now is how for the 3rd, 4th, or even the 5th time, we filed a misconduct claim against an attorney on a high-profile case. In this case, the allegations against attorney, and her name is Lise Fisher Hark. She started out with our case, I want to say in 2012, and right out of the gate, she misrepresented the facts about the case. When given an opportunity, she didn't fix it. And that particular order that came out of that was obtained by fraud. That particular case or that order was used for everything we are dealing with up to the day. So we filed a complaint over the years about that. And because that went unchecked, those actions, and the judges didn't check them and put them in the right place in terms of the law, these things led up to illegal liens on my property. You heard me, a property. Something that had nothing to do with the case, but they wanted to teach me a lesson or bully me. And in this regard, that's exactly what was done because I was unaware of it. I had not been served. And the situation just turned into what I consider a mess because fraud is expensive. It takes a lot to chase after lies and to try to bombard them. In our case, we shouldn't have had to do that. The upper court, instead of them not looking at the fraud and putting those fraudulent orders aside, they decided to go on the side of the defendant and shield that person as opposed to following the law. That's what we believe. And we're going to let it all play out the way it's supposed to play out because it's already really has. But at the end of the day, I got some questions that came in. And I wanted people to know, as I said before, over and over again, that we did put in the misconduct information about what happened from the very beginning. The fraud from the beginning is what we call it. And because that fraud went unchecked or not resolved correctly by the courts, because no due process took place Nothing in terms of procedure. The procedures were not followed, and the judges basically closed their eyes or covered their eyes. The fraud and the fraud upon the court led to liens that were done in 2023. Well, the liens might have been before that. I became aware of the liens in 2023. Illegal or checks were given to the defendants in 2024. And those defendants cashed those checks knowing that the underlying issue was fraud, that they lied to get the order. And that's why they won't do the due process. And that's why they won't let an evidentiary hearing, a discovery. They don't want none of that. They don't want the truth. So here we have that fraud and fraud in the court. I told you all before on another video, there were no gag orders. A gag order basically says you can't talk about a case. We never went to trial. We never did discovery. So the order that we have received that was out of the illegal actions, which is really no good, was a seal order that was directed to the clerk of the court that said the public could not come to the court and get the records, and that the records would be sealed from the public on the electronic system. It made no mention about the parties at all. Nonetheless, because of my godson being a minor, we family thought it was apropos to protect him. Nonetheless, there was no gag order that took place, and the gag order that people are talking about don't exist. And as I said, a gag order is basically something where you don't talk about a particular thing or case, etc. And that's normally done when you have a jury and when something's about to happen legally, and that the judge asks you to do that and they put it in writing. They tell you exactly what you need to do. So that order that we received was only a sealed order of the records. Each party owns their own records. Each party is a stakeholder of their own party, of their own records. They can do what they want with their records. That's a fact, everybody. So we'll find that in some regards, not all. And if this was a real legitimate case, and it's not, because those orders were obtained by fraud, but if it was a real legitimate one, then you would white out the minor's name. That's it. That's all that needs to do if you were to share it. And in this case, that would be my godson, who is now an adult. So the attorney, as we talked about earlier, for this particular case with the misconduct, that's the email I received. The email I received talked about what were some of the charges. Now, I know those charges from before are online, because different parties receive different things in regard to this. And as a result, they posted it and talked about it and all this stuff. So the thing involving the allegations involving Lise Fisher, the attorney, she was originally the attorney that started the fraud. And then she became a witness when she was being sued for the damages that she caused. So she has two hats that she's wearing. Nonetheless, they're all different types of canons, if you will, for misconduct in regard to that. That's under investigation now. It has the old stuff, which you all have out there already on the internet, supposedly or bloggers. You already have misconduct, blah, 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 the allegations with that. And then you have the new stuff where that came out of the illegal liens. Because of the fraud and the fraud in the court, or the fraud from the defendant and his attorney, was not dealt with by the court, meaning there was no due process, no evidentiary hearing, no discovery. And when it was asked for, because the allegation that they made about me and my godson violating an order was false, it never occurred. And there was never no evidence, because we never did, and no evidence, we never did no evidentiary hearing. Nonetheless, because it was high profile, according to them, they wanted to teach us a lesson or to show us not to do something. You can't show somebody to do something that's not in the law. If it's not in the law, you can't show me. And at the end of the day, you can't conceal fraud. If somebody makes a fraudulent statement about anything, that particular case or that case is considered to be open, because you cannot seal fraud. That's a federal offense, and it's also offense in New Jersey, where we were at the time. So here we have those different things going on. So I know the misconduct. The only added thing now is the things where the law firms and the defendants and their clients, somebody, or I guess I'll say the attorneys, cashed the checks. So now they've opened themselves up to another set of problems because you cashed a check where the underlying issue, is fraud. That's why the courts won't do what they're going to do. But just because somebody won't do what they're supposed to do doesn't mean it's not true. That's why we have a court system, to search and be in search of the law to walk it out. And because they didn't walk it out, here we are today having all these discussions and problems. Now, people got their own opinion about a lot of stuff. People want to say different things because they don't know what happened. They always want to take the side of something they don't even know, and they never even ask you, never had a conversation with you, but they know everything. So at the end of the day, that's not good either. So we are going to follow the law. We're going to follow the facts wherever they lead us. And we're going to ask the system to do what it's supposed to do. And that's to make sure justice is served. But some of the things we've seen on a national level, I promise you, me and my godson have experienced on a local level. It's real. And this is why it's important to get out to vote. If you don't vote, you ain't heard. If you get the wrong person in there, you're going to have nothing but chaos, confusion, lies, corruption to a whole nother level. I'm telling you, as an African-American woman, as someone who's worked in the community, as a person has been in the community, my mother was a part of the community, it's important that we follow the right people. And maybe nobody's perfect, not even you. So what we do as people, brothers and sisters, if you will, neighbors, is we help one another. Nobody can solve any problems alone. We all got to work together in a community, and we all have to be respectful of those persons in the community, all of us, regardless of their beliefs and their ways of thinking, as long as it's not something that we know can hurt someone else. We're not going to be helping somebody who want to go into schools and shoot up people and say that's okay. It's not, right? So we know there is a balance to this. So nonetheless, I wanted to come on and give you a little something. We're going to try to give you updates. I know the biggest thing was dealing with attorney Lise Fisher, who started the fraud for us. And the allegations we have is about her, but not only her, but because of her and another attorney that we'll talk about next time, there has been unchecked things that have happened in our case. And as a result, those things led to illegal liens on my residential property in New Jersey. When I went to go sell the house in December 2023, I found the liens. I was never given an opportunity on the second form, because whenever they're going to put liens on your property, it's supposed to go to my county. And I'm supposed to get a second time to go in the forum and plead my case. I never even knew it was happening. I wasn't even served. So at the end of the day, it's all dirty kind of, y'all. It's just a dirty something for some people. But if you really think that you can take a order that's obtained by fraud, that you got on the backs of fraud, on lies, and now you're going to ride that to get more money for my property from the sale of the property, you got to be kidding me. So you've already opened yourself up to what you opened yourself up to. So now the law will do what the law does. The law will expose, it will reveal, and we'll have justice will come with the law. I promise you that. So I'm just coming here today just to give you a little something, just to talk about what I need to talk about, and then let you make a decision for yourself. So I know I'm looking for the email that somebody sent me, but nonetheless, it was all about, they got an old copy from their FOIA of the attorney Fisher and the allegations against her. And I told them that there were new things added, which they saw there were new things because that new stuff is public. They added that to her particular thing and want to have some questions. So if you have questions and we want to have a healthy dialogue about the importance of voting and things you need to do in the court system, if you're in the court system, so that you can have justice served, discovery, evidentiary hearing, a real due process for real about the facts and not a lie, and not use an underlying order that you knew was derived by fraud on multiple levels. We had 3 cases on every single case, 2 civil law cases and 1 family court. Every one of them was based on fraud. It started with the family, and that family court order was used in the other forums to make decisions, all fraud related, y'all. Yeah, so the foundation of it is fraud. The allegations is fraud, and we went to court to try to deal with it, because you can impeach an order. Oh yeah, you can impeach an order that somebody presents and they use it as a weapon. You can impeach it and say, hey, that thing ain't right, y'all. That thing has been derived from fraud. That has been derived from lies, false statements. And then you go through the legal process or the due process to show the court what it is. And in fact, one of the judges told us to do that very early on and then later in the game. But it was blocked and stopped. The person was shielded so that we could not get our due process and fairness. And then let me just explain this and I'll let you all go. I'm gonna take a sip. We have 3 cases. The first case deals with paternity that turned to fraud. Myself and 2 other people, defendants, were parties. My godson is the subject. He was a minor at the time, so he was not a party. So get that straight. That's where the fraud began, right in that case. That case, fraud, or that court orders was 2 done, was led to the next things. The next one, and that was mine, started in 2012. My godson's inheritance case, and he'll tell you about it when he comes on, started in 2014. I wasn't a part of that. It was him and 2 other defendants. And then the last case was the civil law case, 2 civil laws, the inheritance and this one. This civil law case also came in 2014, 2015. That one involved me and my godson. That case was filed. We were told to file it by the inheritance judge so that I could obtain my damages of legal fees when the defendant and his attorney came into the court and misrepresented their property holdings in the state of New Jersey. Those are the allegations. We had the information and the court wouldn't look at it. The court claimed in some regards they didn't have jurisdiction, but they did a whole lot of stuff with no jurisdiction, y'all. But somebody don't have jurisdiction, they did a whole lot. So here we are with 3 cases, not 1, not 2, 3. And each one was all built on the one from the fraud. But all of us was not a party to every one of them legally. Are you hearing me? So therefore, there's a process you have to go through. You can't just jump in the case. You can't make yourself a party. So at the end of the day, it's what we're doing in the case, making people understand that if this was to happen to them, the process they might want to go through. So there are a few people out there who will really, really, really help you with your legal challenges. And just keep your paperwork in order. Make sure you are supposed to do what you're supposed to do, but also vote. Vote so that your voice will be heard internally and externally. And then when you get out to do things in the community, among things, you won't feel that you don't have no power, because you're going to have power, which is one of the reasons why my godson and I and my goddaughter came up with a new legislation that can be attached to old registered legislation and or new. And it's called Legal Abuse Prevention Act. And basically it puts guardrails in so that people like attorneys, bad attorneys and bad judges are not able to abuse elderly people, sick, disabled people, or people who don't have an attorney at the time. Because we had an attorney, didn't have an attorney, and each time different things happen. But we understand it to be true that if you have a good judge, it don't matter, right? It don't matter, because the judge is there. He or she took an oath of office. And this is why we have to vote the right people in who have a conscience and really want to serve the community and be who they're supposed to be when they put on that robe. So that's a big deal. And I'm just going to leave you at that. I'm so glad I got a chance to get on for a hot second to talk to you all. I'm going to do it again. We're going to try to do it with my godson, but understanding what's going on is very important. You can't make a decision about something and be disrespectful, a narcissist in any regard without talking to both sides, right? So you need to know, if you're going to make an opinion anyway, know something, talk to the person at least 5 minutes. But at the end of the day, we're not dealing with any type of paternity, just so you'll know. We started out as paternity, but the case turned into a fraud case. So you can't deal with anything until you deal with the fraud, because that's what they're trying to use as to block us with, by not doing anything with the discovery, by not reviewing the evidence of fraud. And if they don't review it, then they can't give you what the underlying case could be or would be if that wasn't there. So that's completely my godson's area in terms of paternity, and he can do whatever he wants with that. He knew that. He's always known that we all good there. We've always focused on our constitutional rights, because we felt constitutional human rights is those two are very important, even though paternity rights is good as well. But your constitutional rights, being able to go in court and get a fair due process, whether you win or lose, for us, meant more than all these other things like other people concerned with. Because we're not concerned with that. That's not our call. We know what our call is. It's very clear what God has called us to do for this season, this time, and what we're going through. So we are trying to deal with the bad attorneys, because we know that the attorneys had a big part of the things to do. We've also had some circumstances, obviously, with the judges. That's another discussion, another time. Nonetheless, I know some of you know that's out there as well, because the judges are the ones who sign the orders, right? They sign it, and they have an oath of office.